Thank you so much, Kyriakos και κύριοι, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues. Welcome to Athens, and thank you to The Economist for bringing this community together for the world ahead. I'm especially glad we have Tom Sondage with us this evening. Good forecasting is not about getting every event right. It's about forcing clarity on events, on choices. In a period like this, I would say that clarity is quite rare, and it's absolutely essential. This year's theme, walking steadily across a tightrope of uncertainty, captures the moment. Not because uncertainty is new, but because it is now structural. Geopolitics, technology, climate, demographics are no longer separate files. They're one story unfolding at the same time and testing the speed and the strength of our institutions. In that environment, the future is not distant. It is already arriving unevenly and sometimes uncomfortably, and often faster than our systems are used to. Greece understands what it means to walk on a tightrope. We have lived through what happens when markets lose trust, when politics loses credibility, and when the state struggles to turn intention into outcomes. That experience does not make us prophets, but it does make us allergic to illusion and focused on what can work in practice. And that, I would suggest, is what the European question in 2026 should be. Not what Europe says, but what Europe is ready to do, what Europe is ready to deliver. Because the world ahead will not judge us by declarations, it will judge us by performance. There are two temptations Europe, in my view, should resist. The first is complacency. The belief that the frameworks we built after 1945 will endure just by themselves without any form of revival, without any form of renewal. The second is fatalism, the idea that the forces shaping the world are too large for us to influence. Europe's recent experience should rule out both. When we act with clarity and urgency, we strengthen security, we calm markets, and we protect households. When we drift, we pay for it in growth, we pay for it in cohesion, we pay for it in credibility. Let me make this concrete in three areas where the tightrope is especially visible: energy, competitiveness, and technology. Let's start with energy. Europe knew for years where the vulnerabilities were: concentrated dependence, incomplete infrastructure, and weak coordination. The shock forced reality onto the agenda. Europe responded, not perfectly, but decisively. We diversified supply with strengthened interconnections, we stabilized markets, expanded reserves, and accelerated investment. The lesson is not withdraw from global markets. The lesson is to engage with discipline, diversify, invest, connect. Energy security is not a niche issue. It underpins everything: competitiveness, industrial capacity, societal stability, and geopolitical weight. For Greece, this has meant faster investment in renewables and grids, deeper regional cooperation, and a clear objective: convert geography into advantage. We sit at the intersection of three continents and key corridors. With abundant sun and wind and with the right interconnections, Greece can help anchor a more resilient regional energy system that supports Europe's transition while reducing exposure to shocks. That is one point for the world ahead. Resilience does not require isolation. It requires strategy. You can stay open and still be secure if you build options into your system. Now to competitiveness. We speak a lot rightly about external tariffs, but Europe also carries internal barriers that function like tariffs inside our own markets. This is why the Draghi and the Letta report diagnoses landed so strongly. Europe does not have a single market problem in theory, it has a single market problem in practice. We cannot ignore the scale of the problem. Internal barriers operate like a de facto tariff, around 44% in goods and around 110% in services, according to a widely cited analysis by the IMF. Those are not minor frictions, they are structural impediments. And the world will not wait for us to finish debates that we have been having for a decade, or even more. If Europe wants to compete, we need to do three things, and we need to do them with discipline. First, remove internal barriers and bureaucracy that fragment our economic space, not with declarations, but with implementation sector by sector. Second, build the conditions for scale. Europe cannot remain a continent of excellent startups that never become global companies, or that they become global companies at a much more limited fashion than what could be the case. We need capital markets that work across borders, regulation that supports expansion, and procurement that can help us keep up. Third, align our rules with the economy we want to build, not with the economy we inherited. A very clear example for me, given also my, I would say, personal background, is telecommunications. Europe treats telecoms as strategic, and it is, but it still regulates it through 27 regimes. We have some central guidelines, but we have 27 distinct regulators. We run also 27 different spectrum auctions. The patchwork increases cost, slows deployment, makes scale much more difficult. The United States has one regulator, and it also has one spectrum allocation process. China went even further by allocating spectrum administratively, recognizing that the value of 5G lies in what it enables, not in auction revenue. In Greece, we made, I would say, a small but telling choice. We reserved 25% of our 5G auction proceeds to create a fund that supports companies building 5G-enabled applications. Festos is the name of the fund. The point was simple: infrastructure is not enough. Innovation on top of infrastructure is what delivers growth in the medium to long run. Europe's cost of fragmentation is not only inefficiency, it's lost competitiveness. And this applies, I would say, far beyond telecoms, which I just used as an example. We need a single market that does not only remove barriers, but also drives growth. This means rethinking procurement timelines that favor asphalt over software. If it takes longer to procure a digital identity system than to resurface a motorway, then our institutional framework is holding back our ambition. So the question is not just how do we simplify rules. The question is, what do we want the rules to achieve? The answer should be growth, innovation, and resilience. The third area is technology, and more specifically, artificial intelligence. AI has the potential to raise productivity, improve public services, accelerate innovation, but it also carries risks to trust, to jobs, and to democratic participation if deployment outruns governance and institutional design. Europe is often caricatured as choosing regulation over innovation. I would beg to differ and say it differently. Europe is trying to build a market that people can trust. Rules and innovation are not enemies. Clear rules make innovation investable, adaptable, sustainable. Trust is not a moral add-on, it's an economic asset. Greece's digital reform journey, I would say, is a practical case study on this. When we started, we had strong hardware, talent, energy, potential, but we lacked software. Processes, institutional design, policies, basic state capacity. So we decided to build it. Today, gov.gr, for instance, offers more than 2,000 end-to-end services. In 4 years, Greece moved from the bottom of the rankings in digital public services to above the EU average on that specific metric. And there is more to come as recovery and resilience projects move. Digitization is an interesting story because it delivered dividends beyond convenience. It strengthened transparency, it strengthened tax compliance, it helped recover revenue that was previously lost, including through better VAT collection and more effective detection of evasion, without raising the tax rates, to the contrary. Modern states have to do that. They have to make it easier to be lawful than to be unlawful. As we enter the AI era, the principles should be fundamentally the same. AI is a tool, it's not a master. It should extend our capacity, not replace our judgment. So if we get that right, AI can become part of a broader growth model with higher productivity, better services, a stronger social contract. Let me also say a word about Greece's own trajectory because it links, I would say, directly to the European challenge. Greece's recovery is not just a rebound, it's a reset. In recent years, Greece has grown faster than the Eurozone average, with projections around 2.4% growth for this year. We delivered a primary surplus of 4.8%. Previously, we were among the few EU member states to have an overall surplus, a headline surplus, 6 states in total. 4 of them, by the way, had implemented IMF programs in the previous decade, and now they're delivering those headline services, which is, I would say, quite telling. We're repaying bailout era obligations ahead of schedule. Investor confidence has strengthened, yields have normalized. All you need to do is to look at the 10-year bond yields. And the most meaningful signal is that some of the young Greeks who left during the crisis are beginning to return, have begun to return. And this is the most real measure of recovery. That matters because it illustrates a basic truth. Credibility in public finances creates space. Space for investment, space for reform, space for resilience when the next shock arrives. Fiscal prudence for us is no longer a policy choice, it is a regime. Not because discipline is a virtue in and by itself, but because credibility is the foundation of sovereignty in a volatile world. And credibility is not built with austerity alone. It is built with efficiency, by delivering better outcomes through stronger institutions, clearer rules, and modern systems. This is why the digital state that I described before does matter. This is why tackling tax evasion does matter. And this is why the reform legitimacy overall of the system matters in and by itself. People will accept difficult change and difficult challenges when they can see the system becoming fairer, not simply tighter. No honest look at the world ahead can avoid geopolitics. Security and defense should be understood through the lens of resilience. Higher defense spending is not an end to itself. It is part of preparedness, deterrence, and shared and collective responsibility. For countries like Greece, defense spending has never been a fashionable policy choice, and it is not certainly a new policy choice. It has been our geographic destiny. Europe's strategic environment now demands a more serious European contribution overall in defense. This is not about weakening the transatlantic relationship. It is about strengthening it by contributing, not just commenting. At the same time, the economic tightrope runs through trade. Protectionism is tempting in an era of anxiety, but trade wars do not have winners. They create collateral damage through supply chains, inflation, investment uncertainty. Europe should be confident enough to defend its interests, but wise enough to avoid escalation that harms its own citizens. De-escalation and strategic resilience can go together. Diversify supply chains, invest in domestic capability, deepen the single market, and keep channels open. Unity matters here. A union of 27 is not always fast, but it has scale and it has stability. And when it acts together, it can set standards that others can follow throughout the world. One final point. Competitiveness is often framed as a purely economic variable. I would say that this is incomplete. Across many democracies, trust is under strain. Living costs have risen, public debate is fragmented, and community feels weaker. If economic opportunity becomes detached from social stability, trust erodes, and the political center weakens. Cohesion is not only a moral imperative, it is a competitiveness strategy. People will support openness, reform, and innovation if they believe that the system is fair, if effort is rewarded, if rules are enforced, and if growth translates into improved daily lives. That means investing in skills, it means modernizing education and lifelong learning, it means enabling people to participate in the digital economy, and it means having a state that functions predictably, so citizens and businesses spend less time navigating obstacles and more time building value. In Greece, we have tried to make that philosophy practical. Not perfect, not, I would say, enough to fully change everything that we aspire to yet, but certainly directional. A state that is more digital, more transparent, and more capable, because a capable state is the quiet infrastructure of a healthy economy. So let me close, ladies and gentlemen, where I began. The world ahead will be volatile. Geopolitical competition, technological disruption, climate pressures, demographic change will intersect in ways that challenge and will challenge our old assumptions. Working steadily across that tightrope requires three things: credible public finances, institutions that work, and certainly partnerships that can endure. Europe's strength has never been perfection. It has been persistence. Not uniformity, not cooperation, not uniformity, but cooperation. Not retreat, but engagement on terms that are serious and sustainable. The world ahead will test our ability to translate values into outcomes. And the answer cannot be rhetorical. It should and it has to be fully operational. So our ambition should be clear: restore confidence. Confidence in democratic delivery, in open economies that are also fair, and in technology guided by human judgment. That is not a slogan, it is the work that needs to be done. Thank you and have an excellent evening.